Sonate in Urlauten. 5 bevetet seu vergif quie.
This is the Ursonate, that's Kurt Schwitters' poetry, and it's really out there, it's very Dada, and this coming from the mouth of a person who was always very well dressed, very conservatively dressed. Kurt Schwitters was a bourgeois of bourgeois family, and he himself, on top of being an artist, as he described, was also a commercial artist and a typographer. And so, he was not, his family, until the Nazis rose to power, was not really hurting. His family actually owned the building that the Merzbau was in, had owned it for most of his life, actually. That room that is now the Merzbau right there was his studio. So he started, so often you hear that the Merzbau was constructed between 1920 and 1933. Basically sculptural assemblages called the Merz columns. And they were kind of like works in progress, a bit like personal shrines that would get added to over time. So what happened is that between 1920 and 1931, more or less, Schwitters had built many of these sculptural works, many. And what started happening in about 1931 to 33 is he invented this verb vermerz in German, which to merge together, to take a thing and make it Merz. He would take a chair and merge it into a sculptural, sort of Dadaist constructivist work. It's kind of like that moment in which that started happening. They say it's kind of like the moment of transition from Dada to constructivism. But so he started connecting all of these sculptures together with these kind of white shapes. Other thing was that's where also the memory of Schwitters, of Ernst, came in. All the colors that you can see were from his memory. Weird little details, like this colorful little dinghy here. That's when you have parties and you blow those paper things, or how do you say?
Yeah, they are
the streamers, like little paper streamers. There were colorful paper streamers. It's something that Ernst himself did. As a child, he would take a pencil and make little colorful circles with those. And his father loved them, and he took them and incorporated them into the Merzbau. So that was actually his own making. That's his own art as a boy. And these being shrines, do you know, this mask here, this little baby's face with the dot? You know that is the death mask of Kurt Schwitters' firstborn son, and who died in weeks old. And in his classic Schwitters irreverent style, put a red dot on that white mask, and it was quoted as saying, we play until death takes us away. He was kind of this kind of macabre humor was not only Schwitters, was kind of part of a lot of the artists, right, that lived through World War I. Part of the ludic aspect of Kurt Schwitters' sort of character is that he actually lived in his sculpture. It wasn't like a sculpture that you just had to admire from the inside. It is something he lived in. It was almost like a boyish treehouse making. The same thing was true in this Merzbau. There are 2 hidden rooms in the back and up above where he would actually go and hide. And he would often, Ernst was telling the story, who would like have guests come in. He would hide in one of the rooms and watch their reactions as they entered the rooms. And then he would start like declaiming poetry from somewhere that people couldn't see where he was. Another one is behind the cathedral. The cathedral is this part over here. And it's a place where we would he always has his spot where he would sit or lie, and he would place mirrors. The whole place is full of mirrors. They were put so that through the mirror that he could look at the Merzbau and just simultaneously look out the window and see what was going on down in the street. And the cathedral, of course, is only a part of the piece that kind of gave the name for the whole. The cathedral had an acronym, the KDEE, right, which stands for the Kathedrale des Erotischen Elends, which is the cathedral of erotic misery. So another like little wry humor of Schwitters himself. And it was a true cathedral. It was a real cathedral that had an organ, and it played O du lieber Augustin, which is this.
Bum, bum, bum. Oh, du lieber Augustin, 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 oh, du lieber Augustin, alles ist hin.
And this is a perfect song for Schwitters too. Again, like his dark humor. It's one of these songs that it sounds kind of like happy and go lucky. The text actually, it's like it was written in the 16th century during one of the plagues. By an itinerant, vagrant songwriter and sort of troubadour person and drunk, who was found passed out drunk in the street one time and thrown into a communal grave. And he found himself on a pile of corpses and composed this song. And the song says, "Oh, du lieber Augustin," which is himself. Augustin was his name. Everything's gone. Oh, you lieber Augustin, everything's over. And that's kind of like this strange thing of having gone through the war and having experienced that type of devastation and like emerging from it with this type of humor, like just what he did to the death mask of his son, like that type of like the dark, slightly sinister humor that kind of was at the origin of the Dada movement. You know, it was a way of saying, moving beyond all this horror and saying no. We say no to language itself. We say no to all of these things. We're reinventing the world.
Geld ist weg, alles weg, alles weg, alles weg, oh, du lieber Augustin.